Hey everybody, welcome to Hanging with Hodge. I'm Dave Hodgkins, your host. Everybody calls me Hodge, so that's what my friends call me. Please, you too as well. So today is a great day. Today is the first Saturday in the month of August, which means it is National Mead Day. So, as always, on this channel, we're going to make mead. And we're going to get to that in just a few minutes, because on this channel, we make mead, we drink mead, talk about mead. It's pretty much a mead channel. But before we do, and this is what I normally say, don't forget to like the like button and click the subscribe button. I'm going to ask you to hold off on that, because actually I want to talk to you about something that you may end up deciding to unsubscribe, and you know what, that's okay. That's your decision if you do so. But something I want to discuss, and it's a serious topic. So normally, as you know, I don't discuss politics on my channel. I like to keep things lighthearted, tell great dad jokes, because I'm telling you, I got some great dad jokes. Go back and watch some of the other videos. Awesome dad jokes in there. But I want to talk about something serious for a minute. As I said, normally I don't talk about politics, but this one here is important, because recently the Supreme Court decided to overturn Roe versus Wade. And that's going to have serious consequences, because now women are no longer constitutionally protected for rights over their own bodies. And that's wrong. Additionally, they talked about going in and revisiting whether gay people have the right to marry or not. We've seen through trigger laws how this has already taken effect and the impact on people, including a young girl down in Ohio who had a terrible, horrible thing happen to her. And because of their trigger laws, her parents had to take her to another state to get the medical treatment that was necessary at that point. It's something that could have cost her life. And there are people that are okay with that, and I'm not. I've got a wife, I've got a daughter, and I'm not okay with that. So I want to talk a little bit about this here before we go in and we start making mead. And we're going to get to that. But there's a more important date coming up, and that date is November 8th. That's the date that we go to the polls and we start voting on who are going to be our leaders in our state, who make the laws, and who are going to be the leaders in our country. And no, it's not the presidential one, but it's still going to have major consequences throughout. I want to urge you to register to vote. If you're not already registered, make sure you know where to go to vote, and make sure to show up to vote. If we don't protect people's rights, and I want to make this very clear, this channel, no joking aside, this channel stands firmly for women's rights and the LGBTQ community. We are an ally with them. Always have been, always will be. And I will fight for those rights for people. And the way that we're going to do that is getting out and voting. So, before we go ahead and start making mead, remember the 8th of November, when women's rights will be defined. And who you can marry is next on the block. How you vote will draw the line. Now, let's go make some mead. And welcome back. All right, so what are we making today? I recently saw my friend over at Faywood Mead. She made what looked really good, which was a cherry cream mead. And I thought, I'm going to try that as well, because that looked really good. So, Faye, thank you. I'm going to put do it a little bit differently than how she did it. Doesn't mean that hers is wrong by any means. I think that hers looks like it turned out fantastic. I want to try it a little bit different and see if I can get some similar results. So hopefully I can be as good as she is. But to start off with, let's go over what it is that we're going to be using. So we're going to be doing this, and we'll be doing this video in 2 stages. We're going to have part 1 and part 2. This is part 1. We're going to do what's called the primary fermentation. And then we're going to do part 2 where we move it into a secondary fermentation. We move to secondary fermentation, and then we'll move it to bottling after that at the same video. And then we'll have a follow-up with the tasting of it. But I like to do a tasting after each step as well as we're going along. So for our equipment, for the primary fermentation, what we're going to start off with is sanitizing everything. So I use Star San sanitizer, and actually this one here is about out, but thankfully I got a brand new bottle. So we use this, we mix in this with hot water. I sprayed down the entire surface here. Everything gets sanitized. It's thoroughly washed and sanitized. Make sure that you sanitize everything. Do not skip that step, because you do not want bad stuff growing in your mead as you're making it. So start off with sanitizer. Now I take some of that sanitizer solution, I put it into a $1 spray bottle I picked up from, I think, Dollar Tree or something like that. And that's what I use. I spray everything down with that, all my big flat surfaces. Now you could also just take a washcloth with it, wipe it on down. I like to spray things down, and it's also nice just to have this around if you need to do a quick sanitation or something. You can just spray it down. So we've got that. That's sanitizer solution in there. We have our bucket that we're going to be using to ferment in. Our primary fermentation, we're going to use a 1 gallon, or actually it's like a 2-gallon bucket. And we're going to put our must in here. This has got a lid with a grommet in it, a rubber grommet that will help seal it up. And we put an airlock in it that has sanitizer solution in there. I used to use just straight water, and somebody pointed out, that evaporates pretty quickly. But also there are really small bugs that can actually still get through, and they were right. So I put in sanitizer solution in here. You can also use like a cheap vodka, but you need to put something in there to stop the bugs, both regular bugs and micro bugs and bacteria and stuff like that, from being able to get into the must, while still allowing the gases to escape while it's fermenting. So we have our bucket. We have a, for this, we have a baster here, turkey baster, or wine thief that we use. We'll be using a slotted spatula to stir everything up, and this will help to aerate it as well, because yeast, like all living creatures, need oxygen. So we're going to start off by providing oxygen into our must when we're using it. We have a thermometer because we're going to be putting our yeast into some water before we add it to our must to rehydrate it. This way here, we just know you can just pitch your yeast directly in. This way here, though, by rehydrating it, I can see that it's actively active first. But you need to make sure that you add it at the right temperature. So I boiled water, and then I add it in once the water reaches I think it's between 98.5 and 95 degrees is when I add that in. I'll double check. We'll look at the instructions in just a second. But you don't want it to be too hot, otherwise it will end up killing the yeast. We will be using the Lalvin 71B yeast today. Now you can use just a half packet in this. I just use a whole packet. These things are less than $1, so we're good there. So as I said, I just use the whole packet when I put it in. Some people use just half though. We will also be using yeast nutrients. So this will help the yeast to have additional food that it will need through its course while it's doing it. So I want to keep this stuff over here first. Now for our, you'll obviously need honey, which I have here. Now I have this in a bucket of hot water just to warm it up, warm up the honey. It makes pouring it into our bucket here much easier. It'll pour much smoother, and it will mix up much easier as well, just by soaking it in advance. Now I'm going to be using just a half gallon of, I'm using 100% Monterey Cherry Juice that I got from Costco. It says with melatonin. Cool. No added ingredients, all natural. You look at the ingredients list here and it says 100% tart Monterey Cherry Juice. And I am only going to use a half gallon of it because of what Faywood said over on her channel, that it was really tart initially. But go check out her video. Make sure you check her out and subscribe to her channel as well. Check out her video on how she did it. And it says chill, shake well, and serve. We're going to at least shake it well before we put it in, and we're going to be mixing it up also. Now, additionally, what we'll need is vanilla beans. So I ordered this on Amazon. By the way, I'll leave a link to this here below where I got it from Amazon. Got a packet of it. We're going to put one in with our primary, and then when we go to move it to secondary, we'll make a decision whether we need to add in a new one at that time. We also have 1 gallon of spring water. I don't use tap water because I'm on city water and they add in nasty stuff like, you know, it's fine for drinking, but the yeast wouldn't like it. So add in like fluoride and stuff like that. And so it's fine for human consumption, but the yeast don't tolerate it very well. So I pick up a gallon of spring water. I do not use distilled water because distilled water doesn't have anything in it other than straight hydrogen and oxygen. So I use spring water. It does have some nutrients in there, makes it a little bit better. I find that it works really well. So we're going to be using a half gallon of this, a full gallon of water. So basically we're getting a gallon and a half of mead when we're making it. Now, because of the fact I'm going to be using a vanilla bean, I also need a sharp knife and a cutting board. In each stage, we'll be using a graduated cylinder. This one here went to Harvard, by the way, and it did graduate in the top of its class, so I'm very proud of this cylinder. Told you, dad jokes. So a graduated cylinder, it's got numbers and lines on it. And then I also have what's called a hydrometer. And I have a video on how to use this to measure the gravity of the mead, and we'll be taking measurements as we go along. This will let us know what our potential alcohol by volume will be when we get done adding in our everything that we need. And I said, yep, got a slotted spatula. Now when we move into secondary fermentation, things that will move, and we're just going to cover it really quick. We go into secondary, we will initially need a 1 gallon carboy, glass carboy. We're going to need a rubber bung with a hole in it, and we will end up taking this airlock. We'll resanitize it and everything, and refill it, but then we'll put it in the hole that's in here. We put it in the top there, and that was able to let it continue to off-gas anything that's left over. But to get it from our bucket from here into our secondary, we will be using an auto siphon. I'll leave a link to this as well. This will let us move the liquid from one container to another. And then finally, when we get to bottling, for bottling, we're going to add potassium sorbate, which is a stabilizer. This way here, it will prevent any renewed activity once it's done fermenting. We don't want it to start kicking up more gases. We will need 5 wine bottles, or mead bottles, and we will need 5 corks. Any method to get it in. I've got a floor corker, which I don't have in this video here, but I use a floor corker. You can also use a hand corker. If you're going to be doing a lot of this, get a floor corker. Works much better. You can also check out my video, go over to my channel, check out my video that has all of the equipment that you need just in general. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so to start, we're going to take our bucket here, move that over here. we're going to add in our cherry juice. We've got a half gallon here. We got from Costco. Smells good. And when I pour it in, I just like to chug it in because, again, without making a mess, but it allows for more oxygen to get in. Make sure to recycle. And then we'll add 1 gallon of our spring water. Hopefully this will make it so it's not as tart, but it'll still get good flavor. Our next is our honey. Now for this one here, I'm just using the Kirkland honey. Man, prices have gone up. This is getting expensive. When I first started, a 5-pound thing of honey from Costco, Kirkland honey, was $10 for a bottle. It is now up to almost $18, and that's over a 2-year time frame. No, it's been longer than that. 4 years. Yeah, about 4 years when I started. But it's in the past 2 years that it's gone up. And it went from $10 to $14, now up to $18. It's expensive, so I'm trying to look for actually a local source of honey around here in the Kalamazoo area. I'd love to use some local honey. I've got to be able to get it at a reasonable cost because I do make a fair amount of it. So if anybody's local in Kalamazoo and you've got some good honey, give me a shout. All right, so we're just going to pour this in. We're going to do 4 pounds. And I know on here where 4 pounds is. We're going to start off with 4 pounds, then we're going to take a reading. And just because I use this so much, I know where the 4-pound mark is. But one of the things I forgot to mention, the other piece of equipment that we'll be using is a scale. I've got a scale here. And I will check the weight here. Starts at, this is a 5 pound, so I know I want to leave 1 pound of honey left in here. That should be about right. Almost, got to do a little bit more here. A little bit more. All right, that's at our mark. So basically, once you get down to, on these bottles here, get down to the label, bottom of the label, what's left there, that's 1 pound of honey left. Give that a good stir. We're going to take our first reading. Be right back. All right, so that gives it about enough stirring. Now, I'm also stirring pretty vigorously because I want to get as much oxygen in there as possible. Again, so that the yeast will have it when it starts the fermentation process. Now we grab our wine thief and our graduated cylinder. And so I do this different ways. When I'm going into primary, when I'm first starting it, I'll put the wine thief into it and then I'll squeeze, and that just adds more air. When we go into secondary and we're measuring it when we're in secondary, we will start by squeezing the bulb so we just suck the stuff up and we don't add any additional air because we don't want to aerate it at that point. Once we go into secondary, we don't want to aerate it. Primary air is our friend, secondary air is not our friend. We're going to go with that. And I'm shooting for about a gravity reading of 1.114. We're currently at 1.10. So we're going to go ahead. Oh, that's right, because I added in water as well. All right, so we're going to go ahead and use up the rest of this honey. Now, to help get the rest of this out, I'm actually going to put some in here. It's going to add a lot of aeration, by the way. As we'll get the rest of the honey out of it as well. I'll tell you, it does smell really good so far. Just the cherry juice and the honey smells good. When I first opened up the package of the vanilla beans just out of the package that came in from Amazon, and I haven't even opened up the actual package yet, you could smell it, and it smelled really good. All right, now, let's see what our reading is now. And whatever it is, that's what we're going to go with. So if I didn't hit the 1.114 that I wanted to, sucks to be me. And we're at 1.102405. All right. Oh, the other piece of equipment that you will need, that I forgot to mention, keep forgetting to mention what you'll need, is a notebook with a pen, because you need to write everything down. So that way there you know what it is that you've done and when you've done it. Pull out our handy dandy calculator. And my math teacher said, you may not always have a calculator with you. Yes. Our formula for determining what our potential ABV is you take your original starting gravity, so in our case it is 1.105. Okay. You subtract, if you get it down to, assume that you get it down to 1.000, which would be dry, you subtract that off from your original, so minus 1.000. It leaves you with, obviously, 0.105, and then you multiply that by by 131.25, and that gives you your potential ABV, which in this case here, it's about 13.78%. Respectable. I'll take that. All right, so we've got this is the beginning of our must. Now we still need to add our vanilla bean. I'm going to set this aside for a second. Let's move some stuff around. We're going to only add one vanilla bean. By the way, this is our yeast that we are rehydrating, and I can see that it is rehydrating well, indicating that we have a good beginning to our yeast. I'll put that on just temporarily, bring our cutting board over, grab out our vanilla beans. Oh, that's good. That is really good. All right. Another piece of equipment that you will need will be a Ziploc bag for afterwards, because this did not come with, doesn't self-seal afterwards, so you want to put that into a Ziploc bag. And what we're going to do is we're just going to score down, cut the front here. Please don't cut yourself when you're doing this. Otherwise, you will turn this into a pirate's blood mead. Which technically is kind of like a pirate's blood mead. Maybe a pirate cream blood mead. All right, so now that we just scored down that, kind of open it up so that it can get in there. This is kind of, I hope this turns out really good. What it looked like from over on Faywood Mead, it looked like it came out well. So we're just going to go ahead and drop that right in. Our next step is we take our yeast, we're going to pitch that in. And again, we're going to take a little bit of, so we're just going to use that to make sure we get everything out. And then the other equipment that you will need that I forget to bring over, so I'm going to have to run over and grab one here, is one tisp. And instead of just trying to eyeball it, I'm going to go grab a tisp. Be right back. All right, and we're back with our tisp, our teaspoon, or as my buddy over at my buddy Eric over at Mead with Eric and Derek says, tisp. So, hey, by the way, my buddy over at Texas Longhouse Meadery is trying to get to the magic number of YouTube subscribers. So if you don't already subscribe to him, jump over to his channel. I have a link below. Jump over to his channel and subscribe. You know, we've just got an awesome BrewTube community here. You know, I watch other YouTubers as well, besides mead makers, and you know, you see sometimes a lot of people, you know, they fight and stuff on YouTube and stuff. Really don't see that with the mead brewers here. I've made some good friends with some of the folks that are out there that are BrewTubers as well, making YouTube videos. They've got some good content. You know, obviously, you guys probably all know BC over at Doing the Most, Man-Made Mead. I said Faywood Mead, where I'm doing a copy of hers here. We've got Mead with Eric and Derek, Texas Longhouse Meadery, Arrow to the Mead. You know, obviously Citystead Brewing. You know, just some great channels out there. Make sure to jump onto all of them, subscribe to all of them, give them likes on their videos. They work hard. You know, for me, this is just a part-time hobby that I love to do. Some of them, though, you know, they put even more time and effort into theirs. So make sure to go over, check them out, and give them a like. So as this says, the ingredients here: food grade urea and ammonium phosphate, 1 tisp per gallon of must. So we will give a heavy tisp because it does have the cherry juice, and that will give it some nutrients. I'll give it a heavy, and just a little bit more as well. Yeah. That's about a tisp and a half. We're going to give it a stir. There we go. Make sure to leave your bean in there. All right. And then we are going to put our lid on. Snap this on. Now, when you are putting your lid on, check the handle, which side the handle comes up on, and make sure that the airlock is on the other side. You don't want to deal with coming it up and hitting into it. So put the airlock on the other side. I will also be taking a wet erase marker, and I'll be labeling on the side here what's in it, because I do have other brews going. I'll label it here and on top. It makes it easier to see what's in there. This is going to ferment probably about 2 weeks. If you don't use a yeast nutrient You don't have to. It makes life a whole lot easier if you do. In my earlier videos, I didn't. And it takes longer. It will work. It'll come out with good product, but it does take a bit longer. Using this will finish up in about 2 weeks. That's what I'm assuming. On average, that's what it's been coming out to be, is about 2 weeks. And then I'll be able to rack it into secondary for another 2 to 3 weeks, taking measurements along the way as we go. Once we see that the measurements don't change over at least a 1 week period, so even if it gets down to 1.000 and you say, hey, it's done, it may not be done because it can actually go lower than that. So we want to take readings when we get into secondary. We'll take readings at periodic stages, and once we see that it's gone at least a week or two without changing, then we'll go ahead, stabilize it, and then we'll move it into bottles after that, and then we can enjoy our product. So it's not an overnight process. This is going to take some time, but it's fun. Give it a try. Tell people, you know what, the great thing about YouTube videos is you can follow along with it. If somebody like me can do it, anybody can do it. So until next time, hey, thanks for coming out, hanging with me, hanging with Hodge. I'm going to have some videos over here, actually over here. I'll put some videos, and I have a link to subscribe over here. And take a few minutes, check them out. Don't forget, register to vote, make your voice heard, and stick up for everybody's rights. Make sure everybody has the equal rights, okay? So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And as always, have a great day. We'll see you next time.